Kahit ba, pa, am going to distribute this one, but doesn't mean naman yung this is just for our discussion since we don't have TV or any projector which are going to show this one. So just share them ha. You can Okay, so this morning is going to have another, and this will be the last already discussion in biochemistry, which is really about proteins. And this is the last biological macromolecule that we're going to deal with in terms of its function, basic information, and different properties, especially that protein comes with different types of amino acid and also what makes us protein inside our body. And biologically speaking, class, protein is the most abundant macromolecule inside our body. From the tiniest or the smallest nerve cells located in our brain up until the extracellular parts in our body like our hair, our nails, our skin, all of those mentioned are contained or is containing protein. So, in short, we are made up of protein. So without protein, there could be no lipid, there could be no carbohydrate, or in short, there could be no life. And significantly, protein is very essential in our day-to-day activities. Most especially, if I am going to discuss you with the functions. Like literally class in the function, didn't you masaktan na, yes, it's true today that protein is the most abundant macromolecule in our body. And then according to the Greek word, it comes from the word prota, which means of primary importance. Among all macromolecules, it's the protein that is the forerunner of all. So it is on the topmost. If we have a pyramid, the protein is on the topmost part located because it is the most important macromolecule. And So mostly it is now complete with the basic living element or primary living element in our our things. So we have the carbon, the hydrogen, the oxygen, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus with their specific percentages. So if you're going to see a structure of a protein, mostly it is composed of carbon, like half of it is carbon. We have also hydrogen, which can only consume 7% of it, oxygen 23%, nitrogen 16, and then the rest, either a sulfur or a phosphorus, it depends on what specific protein is that. It's either 0 to 3%. And then protein class is arranged in a linear chain of amino acid. If we're going to compare the structure of protein rather, it looks like a long beads of rosary. So the beads there, the single units of bead, that's the amino acid. And once we connect each bead together, it forms a polypeptide, a long polypeptide chain of amino acid. Next, so where does protein coming from? Especially us humans. How are we able to get protein inside our body? Since, as what I've said, it is very important and we need it for our daily living. Now, question is, once you've heard the word protein, what comes into your mind? And what word you can associate directly?
Chicken.
Meat. Very good. What else? Aside from meat, what specific meat? All types of meat?
Chicken.
Chicken, yes. Sa paman? Very good. Our very own egg. Sa mga klase ng egg? Egg, pinagpagkagusa, basta ikan sa mga poultry products. Egg itself is chiefly composed or is the most abundant in protein. Sa paman? Meat, egg,
Mussels.
steak, and also we have very good mussels. Mussels also is abundant or mussel. So what are the sources or how we can get protein inside the body? So plants, we should include plants because plants is also a living component inside the earth. So how does which plants also gets protein? So plants class, ang nitrogen niya or makuha food is either from the air or from the soil, directly from the soil. So our air class is chiefly composed of nitrogen component, nitrogen gas, and then the soil as well is composed of nitrogen. So through nitrogen fixation, because ang protein man good class na naa sa air at the same time, on the soil, it is still insoluble. From the word insoluble, the plant cannot fully absorb it properly. So that's why it must undergo nitrogen fixation so that the insoluble protein will become soluble one. And by that, the plants can now get it from the main sources, the air and the soil, through their vascular bundles. But how about us, animals, humans? How can we get protein? So we can get protein through diet, through what we eat. So from plants and animals. We are omnivores. We eat plants, we eat meat as well. Now for plants, okay, what happens here? How do you think plants able to get protein from the soil? So here comes a cat. So once a cat defecates, once it defecates, where do you think the stool is excreted for a cat? Where do you think the stool of a cat is secreted? Toilet bowl? Litter box sa CR? Ano ito nalibang? Or everywhere, anywhere. And where do you think their stool or their manure is deposited? It's deposited on the soil. Now, on the stool itself, our body releases protein or excreted protein, which is either in a form of stool, but not necessarily urine, mostly of stool. And since this stool soil contains protein, so if this is the soil, once the stool or the manure of the cat already encounters the soil, it will interact with the microbes, microorganisms, bacteria located in the soil. And with that, it will undergo the decomposition process. And once it decomposes, it releases several chemicals, several substances, including protein, in a form of nitrogen. But this substance is not yet soluble to be absorbed by the plant. That's why it has to undergo nitrogen fixation. And once it is now okay, the plant itself will absorb this nitrogen or protein towards it. And once the plant has gained that element or gained that substance, we also gain from it by eating or by consuming the plants, like the leafy vegetables and other organic products. Same goes with the animals. As we all know, chicken, pork, lamb, they're all containing protein. So once we intake them, we are also getting the protein which is inside their body as well. But we're not consuming human, okay? Because we're not cannibal. We're consuming only poultry or other livestock animals. Okay, now speaking of amino acid, if glucose is the building block or the main source of energy for carbohydrate, fatty acids for lipids, for protein, we have amino acids. And we have 20 amino acid classes. These are considered as the building blocks of protein. So kindly look at your copies that I gave to you. There are 20 amino acids all in all. Altogether, can we mention this 20 amino acids based on the list? Go.
Alanine, arginine, asparagine, aspartame,
Glycine,
histidine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, proline, serine, threonine, tryptophan, tyrosine, guanine.
okay, you can use those names now in once you have child, once you have children in the near future. You can use this names of amino acid to name your children. Because it is a really cool name. However, class, again, these are 20 amino acids, and all of these amino acids are essential. All of these are needed inside the body because of their individual roles and responsibilities. And then also on the next column, as you can see, we have a three-letter code. Like alanine, we have capital A, small letter L, and A. We have also arginine. We have ARG, capital A, small letter R, and G, and the rest of it. Now, what's the purpose of this three-letter code? Now, once we are going to discuss how protein is synthesized, how proteins are created, okay, we're not going to write this one individually with their complete names because a long chain, a polypeptide chain is really long, literally. So if we're going to write it down one by one, bakang kagsiyang-siyang. That's why we have to use either a three-letter code, and then on the third column, we have a one-letter code. And then I am going to let you familiarize the codes because we're going to use that one. Once we translate, let's transcribe how RNA to DNA sequence. We're going to have that one, not today, maybe next meeting. So I'm going to teach you how to code. Okay? Next, properties, which is on the fourth column. Although they're the same as amino acid, but they come with different property. Why? It has something to do with their different folding. Now, you cannot understand what folding I am mentioning now, but sooner or later, I am going to explain this one as well. So again, it comes with different properties. There are amino acids that are water-filling, or they phenylalanine. What can you observe in their structure compared to the other? Histidine and then the phenylalanine.
Na siya yung isa. Same, na.
Oh, not the same.
Pero wala na yung nitrogen.
But what makes them in common? Either not the same, but what makes them in common? Together with the bromine, tryptophan, tyrosine. Okay, they have a cyclic ring or an aromatic ring.
Aromatic.
Okay? So, in short, they have also different structural components. The other one has an aliphatic chain, or it could be an aliphatic chain containing single bond, double bond. Or it could be a closed chain, or an aromatic ring, just like what I mentioned earlier. Okay? So that is the variety of different amino acids inside the body. They're the same, they're protein, but in terms of their properties and structures, they are different already. And why they're different? It has something to do with their roles and responsibilities inside the body. Ano siya para sa brain, ano siya para sa cells, para sa tissue, etc. Okay. Now, next one, this is the general structure of a protein. Now, although there are different structures, but this is the most common one. Okay, let's have alanine. Kindly locate the central carbon or the alpha carbon of alanine. Where do you think is the central carbon of alanine?
Are
Are you sure?
Ay,
That's the
R.
central carbon.
Ano?
Okay. And have it nice here for a while. This is the central carbon written in blue marker. Now, on the left, this left side, so on the left side, we have the amino group. So this one is the amino group. Why is it named as amino group? Because we have here the NH2. This is the amino acid part, amino group. On the right side, we have C double bond O, single bond OH. So this is COOH. This is the carboxylic group, where the carboxylic acid is. Okay, again, this is the amino group where the NH2 is. This is the carboxylic group on the right side, where the C double bond O and single bond OH is. On top, we have the remaining hydrogen, and then below are the side chain or the other carbon group, this one. Okay. Now, look at alanine. Where do you think is the central carbon of alanine?
CH.
Okay. Actually, you're going to write this one ha. So that everybody can see. We're just going to copy based on what is on the worksheet. We have H2 and the CH. We have C, double bond O on top. On the side is the single bond CH. Here's the C and the right now. If we're going to separate H over here, I see your class because this is very complicated. If we're going to separate the H here, which is conjoined towards the carbon, I am going to remove this one and we'll elaborate the bond further. So if you're going to look at the general structure, this is the hydrogen, this one, on top. On the left side, we have the amino group, this one. And then below, we have the side chain or the carbon group. By the way, for the side chain or the R, this is the R. It depends on the number of carbons. So we have here methyl or alanine. It could also be CH2, CH3, or CH2, CH2, CH3, so on and so forth. It depends on the number of carbon for the
Amino acid.
Is this the central carbon?
No.
What is this? The R, the side chain groups of carbon. Is this the central carbon?
Yes.
Okay, technically that is the central carbon or side chain. Okay? Now how about for glutamine? Kindly proceed to glutamine. Where do you think is the central carbon of glutamine? Okay, the one with carbon beside NH2, sorry, carbon in the middle of NH2, and the COOH. How about the remaining carbons below it?
Side.
Okay, it's the R group or the side chain carbon. Okay, that's it. That is how we're going to determine the structure of an amino acid. Okay, let's proceed. So what are the different properties of amino acid? First, it contains, of course, the COOH. That is the carboxylic group. And since from the word carboxylic acid, it is the acidic part of the amino acid. Another one, it contains NH2, which is this one, the amino group. This is the basic or the alkaline part of the chain or alkaline part of the amino acid. And amino acid class is also amphoteric. When you say amphoteric, it can react to both acid and base. Again, it can react both to acid and base. What is aliphatic? Two properties in one molecule like hydrophilic head
And hydrophobic
base. Amphoteric can react to both acid and base environment. And then it also exists predominantly as deuterions. What is deuterions? In deuterions class, it has equal charges. For example, let's have alanine. Let's just say that the positive charge, since we're talking about charges, as we all know, molecules cannot be created without a positive and the reaction is negative charges. So we have positive and negative charges. So to be considered as deuterions, amino acids have equal numbers of charges. Like for example, alanine has the total of 10 positive charge, and then for its negative charge, still is 10. And since they have, just example now, since they have the same number of charges for alanine, the net charge here becomes 0. Okay. So, mo na siya. Yeah, that's why one of its property is but again, this is just an example. Okay, now let's think of tug of war. This group and this group. Which do you think is mas daghan? Kamo or sila? Okay, let's say that this is the positive charge group. This is the negative charge group. If we're going to play tug of war, which do you think wins? So the charges will pull off towards the positive end. But if it's, let's just say you're the positive this time, you're the negative, tendency here is the pulling off molecules will happen on the negative charge end. But in case of a deuterion, let's just say you're 20 here, 20 sa sila, so what do you think will happen if mag-tug of war? Equal ra ang distance, equal ra ang strength. That's why it produces a net charge of 0. Wala yung makadahog. Okay? That is for the material. And that is one property of an amino acid. But charges might change. Pwede siya more on positive or more on negative. If atong hilabtan or if there is several changes happening on its isoelectric point. Isoelectric point or PI. Small letter P, capital I. That's the symbol. What is an isoelectric point? Isoelectric point or the PI refers to the neutral pH value of a protein. But once we introduce an amino acid on an acidic environment, or once we introduce the amino acid on the basic environment, what do you think will happen? So these are the different conditions. Okay, let's have first the pH value, if you can still recall. What's the neutral pH value? 7. Okay. 1. In the middle, this is the neutral, 7. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, up until 14. This is the higher one, pH value. 1 also is the lowest pH value. As the pH value increases, what do you think happens to its environment? Is it acidic or it becomes basic?
Acidic.
Sure.
Basic. Mataas.
As the pH value increases, 8, 9, 10, 14, actually it becomes basic. Mali siya. Once the pH value decreases, it's acidic. If you're going to drink Coke, Coke is very acidic. It has a pH value of around 6. Hindi po siya dapat 1 na if 1, so na siya muriatic acid na po siya. Wala, we can still drink carbonated drinks because it has just 6 acidity. But still, it is considered acidic. Now, we're going to use this data over here on this one. Try to analyze the statement. By the way, the pH here refers to the environment. The PI here refers to the isoelectric point of the amino acid or the protein. So if the pH is greater than the isoelectric point of amino acid, what do you think is the environment? Is it basic environment, or does the amino acid is exposed to acidic environment? pH is greater than the isoelectric point, which is neutral pH. Very good. This is exposed to a basic environment or alkaline environment. So if we're going to put one single amino acid in a basic environment, this will happen. The amino acid this time, instead of deuterium na siya, the amino acid this time has now more negative charge. If we're going to expose it to a basic environment. If the pH, on the other hand, is lesser than the isoelectric point, so we are now exposing the amino acid on acidic or basic. Okay, this is already acidic. And what happens in the environment where the amino acid is acidic? The amino acid this time has more positive charge. But what if missed? So once yung environment, kung asa si amino acid is equal to its pH level, equal na, the amino acid becomes least soluble in that environment. Okay? So these are the conditions. At the same time, these are the
H.
Nasiyang glutamic, miss. Kanang structure sa cysteine.
Ayaw bitan out, si glutamine. Dili ka po kung nilagay mo.
CH, yan.
And
3.
then we have SH. Alanine structure, cysteine structure. Now let's just say, okay, ito sila linear chain. This time, buha pa ang na-create sa linear chain, which is alanine and cysteine. And how does the linear chain created? It has something to do with their N-terminal and C-terminal. N-terminal, like here. N-terminal, this is the C-terminal. On the other amino acid, the N-terminal, the C-terminal. Now what happens here, in order for it to become a linear chain of amino acid, it must undergo hydrolysis, which is opposite of dehydration. Basically, hydrolysis, we are producing water. So once we produce water, paano ito pag-produce of water? So what happens, ang starting point dyan is the N-terminal of alanine. This is where the N-terminal of alanine, the C-terminal of alanine, N-terminal of cysteine, C-terminal of cysteine. So the C-terminal of alanine interacts with the N-terminal of the cysteine. So the C-terminal interacts with the N-terminal of the other amino acid. How? Through hydrolysis. So we have OH here. We are going to emphasize the bond, di ba, na H2. We're going to emphasize it lang. First H, second H. This is the H2. So this H over here and OH on the C terminal for the first amino acid, which is alanine, interacts together and forms HOH or H2O. Then OH plus H, HOH or H2O. I am going to remove this one since they are now water molecule through hydrolysis process. And since we removed already some molecules in the chain, the carbon and the nitrogen, the C terminal in the alanine, and the N terminal in the cysteine is now intertwined together, is now connected because of hydrolysis. And this is now called dipeptide chain. The word di, lupa. Kung kulot-kulot po sila, alanine, cysteine, guanine, this is tripeptide. If four more than, that is called polypeptide chain of amino acid. And this is how it works. This is how amino acids interact with one another. Through the N and C terminal and through the hydrolysis process. Okay? Then, lastly, function. We'll just make it quick because we're only 15 minutes left. So, dili mo kayo yung class na really the most abundant macromolecule in the body. Okay? From the brain cells down to your dead skin cells, it contains protein. So let's have first biological catalyst. So as protein, one of its main functions, it is biological catalyst in our body. What is catalyst?
Ay,
Based on your prior knowledge from the previous school, what is catalyst?
mix. Siya yung blend sa mga kasubsas sa different
Then down, yung mga substance. Ha?
Like, pwede siya,
Siya way, Miss Barbara.
siya yung precursor.
Siya ang may mag-bend or para mag-bind ng mga elements, ng mga molecules or substances.
Precursor.
Okay, what else? Catalyst.
Precursor.
Or gamot ako ng mga younger generations or the catalyst of change.
Precursor. Amaral foundation. Beginning. Starting point. Precursor.
Precursor, starting point. Actually, class, when you say catalyst, yes, it is the forerunner, but the specific definition of catalyst is it is any substance that makes the reaction faster. So, for example, yeast. What's the use of yeast in baking?
Para-paray sa dough.
Okay, para dali siya makukuno, antibody na nasa inyong mother, antibody class is anything that finds pathogenic organism. So, because of the love coming from your mother, they've also passed down antibodies towards you through plasma membrane once you're still inside her womb. Another one, once you're latching already through breast milk, you're also getting antibodies from the milk itself. So the antibodies classify as antigen. Antigen are foreign organisms that should not be inside our body. So these proteins are fighting to protect us against any invasion. So this is more on the immunity side, adaptive immunity. Like, for example, B cells. B cells are also part of our immune system in which it fights bacteria and virus. So once kana sila class, the bacteria or a certain bacteria or virus enters our body, this B cells creates a photographic memory already. Okay, by that time, no, mamubalik na sila, okay, di ba perfect atong body, matakdan na diya ang sakit. So once makuha na nabalik ang bacteria, naanay kanang organic something guard cells na nila fight off because of the B cells. Okay? Sige. Another one, it transports molecules or ions. In what way it can be able to transport or to deliver? For sure, you know hemoglobin.
Yes.
What's the purpose of hemoglobin?
Hemoglobin.
New blood?
Pigmented blood. Kataan sabi. Pigments of blood.
Pigments of blood, okay? What else? What's the main function of hemoglobin?
Magpa
Hemoglobin carries what?
red.
Yes. By the way,
Oxygen.
hemoglobin is also known as the RBC, or the red blood cell. But what could be the other? I am asking for the function, the main function of hemoglobin.
Oxygen.
Very good. The hemoglobin carries the oxygen. Once you're deficient about this, it will have anemic. It will cause anemia or anemic. So there is deficient level of oxygen. Okay, the hemoglobin. So again, hemoglobin carries oxygen throughout our body. And how can be able to carry oxygen or transport oxygen throughout the body? With the help of the circulatory system. Okay? So for the word transporting of molecules, example na si hemoglobin. Still, it sounds like protein. Hemoglobin. Protein. So muna ang gamito ng mga Q, if it's a protein or not. Pepsin, the enzyme, immunoglobulin. This is also hemoglobin. We have also another one, myoglobin. Myoglobin.
Familiar. White blood cells.
That's myocyte.
Ay, oh, what was it?
Ano ang myocyte?
Ha? Muscles?
Okay, we need oxygen in our muscles. Okay, for example, ano mag-warm up ng tabi?
Para dili sila malitan.
Okay, we need warming up so that we have enough oxygen in our muscles. Kaya if you're, example na mo, gagawin mo 5 kilometers without warming up. Tendency, instead of having aerobic process, there is anaerobic process or lack of oxygen. And once it happens, instead of producing more energy, it produces into lactate, which is this time a lactic acid. That's why makapila din yung pamakol due to lack of warming up, due to lack of oxygen in the muscles. And what is this protein that transports oxygen in our muscles? It's the myoglobin. For the blood, hemoglobin. Okay, next. Protein also regulates cell function in a form of a hormone. It regulates our emotion, our sleeping pattern, our metabolism, our day-to-day physiological changes. It has something to do with hormones. Like for example, serotonin. What's serotonin? Hormone. Yeah, it is a happy hormone. Naman ano nga, times are very alive, very positive, enthusiastic, because higher levels of serotonin. So it still sounds like protein. Melatonin as well. Melatonin is a type of hormone that,
Produces sleep pigment.
okay, for sleeping patterns and, no, you're
Ay,
sa,
oh
kasi yung melanin,
ay, gali, ano siya?
ay, ang melanin, layo na siya sa
Wrong.
sleep pigment na siya.
Wrong.
Ang melatonin, kung nakabatay mo, ano yung mga capsule roll, there's a melatonin capsule, para na siya sa mga insomnia. So, ito sa hormone na para makatulog ka, kabalik ng biological clock.
Oxytocin.
Okay? Another one is dopamine. So, yun sila daw, mostly sa boys, no?
Kanang
Dopamine
dagan-dagan.
was increased during
Dagan-dagan.
kadlawon. Muna, I forgot the term. Forgot the term. So, you know already what I mean.
Kanang mag-jog. Ano na mag-jog? Hindi, hindi pa makasabitan naman makita
Okay, basta anything that sounds like protein as a hormone is a precursor of protein as well. So it regulates in the form of hormone. Another one, how it regulates our cell. So it regulates our cell, for example, this is the phospholipid bilayer in our plasma membrane. So just like water, it easily diffuses. Pwede siya lang magpapalon or mawas sa cell. But there are other molecules, for example, sodium, potassium. These are substances in our body that has a large molecular size. So it cannot be easily diffused in the phospholipid bilayer. That's why it needs a channel. Brush of tubo, brush of tube, brush of duct. This is where the sodium, our body needs sodium, or where the other electrolytes as well enters or exists. This is called protein channel, which is embedded on the phospholipid bilayer together with the glycolipid. Okay? So in our regulation of the cell in a form of hormone or in a form of protein channel. Another one, structural support and mechanical strength in what form? Okay, birahan ng buhok sa inyong kapal. Yan, kasi kaya ang buwan. Yung skin. Nakangkang iyang skin? Wala. Nakangkang iyang buhok? Wala.
Wala.
Okay, no.
Nobody.
Very good. Regulate the still contains protein in a form of keratin for the hair and collagen. Okay, that's why na natin magpa-botox, no? Kaya medyo saggy na dyan kanila now. Okay. It's because class, once you're too much exposed to the UV rays from the sunlight, it breaks apart the collagen. It's very sturdy because of too much UV rays, it breaks apart. And once it breaks apart, that's the main reason we have wrinkles, saggy na skin, or mga skin na we're dehydrated kita na. Okay, that's why there are some collagen products already available nasa online that can exist because yan ang muna, uso lang dun siya kuno, may hilig na dun yung mga tao ron na
Anti-age.
change. And keratin. By the way, keratin is flexible and elastic because you can bend your hair at the same time na siya magingat. Another one for collagen, it is just elastic but it's not flexible. Pwede din yung may mo heart shape on yung skin. Diba? It's just elastic. Okay? So again, this is for the structural support and mechanical. Still sounds like protein. Keratin, pwede lang siya nagamit that's how actin and myosin works. Still sounds like protein. Actin, myosin. Next, all sources of amino acids are for growth. About 20 kabuo. These 20 amino acids are very essential for growth and development. That's why we have to take them, and it's very necessary in the body. Okay, this time preparing to all 20 amino acids. Next one, it regulates metabolic activity from the word metabolic, metabolism, in which we're going to convert something into energy for daily activity. And of course, this field needs enzyme for this. Okay, walang paspaso. Next, transmission of impulses. Gagawin na kayo ng part ng gigan sa immune system, follow circulatory system, vascular system, or halos ka na na. Even the nervous system still contains protein. So if we're going to draw once again, the nerve cell, we have the axon terminal. Adding a point or the tip of the axon terminal, you're going to enlarge or to zoom that one. It contains a protein channel na siya called in half. This is where the signal or the synapse happen. This is where the delivering of messages or information in a form of electrical synapse happen. So without the presence of the protein channel on the axon terminal, hindi na magpagpagod ng information, hindi na siya kumapos. And also it absorbs the sudden voltage because it is in a form of electrical impulse. That is for the action value. It's called action potential. Action potential is when the protein channel accepts the signal or the electrical impulse from one axon terminal nerve cell to another axon terminal of another nerve cell. Okay, this one is for the nerve. That's the transmission of hereditary characteristics in the form of DNA or deoxyribonucleic acid. If we're going to draw the DNA as this one, it contains several chains of protein. Okay, so that's it. Question. It's already time. Next meeting, you already know what will happen. I already gave you the schedule of activities, long test. After long test,